My sister just drained $80,000 from my savings account to buy a Hermes bag. For 10 years, I worked 80 hours a week like a robot just to save every penny, while Sarah, my sister, lived like a princess on my money. I thought the worst was behind me, until I was diagnosed with cancer and needed $200,000 for treatment. My entire family turned their backs on me when I needed them most, except for one old friend. But the truth I discovered changed everything forever. It was Thanksgiving 2023, and I was sitting at our family dining table in our middle-class California home, watching Sarah show off her brand-new Louis Vuitton bag. The burgundy leather gleamed under the chandelier as she posed for Instagram photos, her perfectly manicured nails catching the light. "Sarah knows how to enjoy life," Mom beamed, refilling Sarah's wine glass. "Not like Jessica, who only knows how to work." Dad nodded approvingly. "Your sister understands that you can't take money with you when you die, Jess." I forced a smile, but inside, I felt hollow. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift at the accounting firm, still wearing my wrinkled business suit while Sarah floated around in a Chanel dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was the one funding this lifestyle, yet I was the one being criticized for not living. As I helped clear the dishes, I noticed something that made my stomach clench. My credit card was lying on the kitchen counter, right where I'd left it after paying for the groceries. But Sarah's eyes had lingered on it a moment too long. When I went to grab it, I caught her quickly looking away. Later that evening, as I was getting ready to leave, Sarah pulled me aside with that sweet smile she always used when she wanted something. "Jess, honey, I know you're always worried about money, but I have this amazing business opportunity," she whispered conspiratorially. "I just need to borrow $5,000, just temporarily. I'll pay you back double within a month, I promise." I should have said no. God, I should have said no. But the way she looked at me with those big blue eyes and that vulnerable expression, "It's just that Tom's been so stressed about his job and I want to surprise him with this investment. You know how hard marriage can be." Against every instinct, I transferred the money that night. $5,000 from the account I'd been building since I was 22. The account that was supposed to be my emergency fund, my future, my security blanket in a world that felt increasingly unstable. That was the first crack in what I thought was our perfect family. A month passed, then 2. When I gently asked about the repayment, Sarah's tone shifted completely. "Jessica, you're being ridiculous. It's just money between sisters. Why are you being so calculating about everything? We're family." Mom overheard and immediately took Sarah's side. "Jessica, you're being too uptight. Your sister will pay you back when she can. Family doesn't keep score." But I was keeping score because someone had to. By Christmas, the temporary $5,000 had become $10,000 for Sarah's emergency dental work. By February, it was $20,000 for her business startup costs. Each time, the same guilt trip, the same emotional manipulation. "You make so much money, Jess. What's a few thousand between sisters? You don't have kids or a husband to support. You can afford to help family. Stop being so selfish. We raised you better than this." I tried to explain that I wasn't rich, that every dollar came from sacrificing social life, vacations, even basic comforts. I lived in a studio apartment, drove a 15-year-old Honda, and bought generic groceries while Sarah was posting pictures from Napa Valley wine tours and luxury spa weekends. But somehow, I was the selfish one. The gaslighting was so subtle, so consistent, that I started questioning my own memory. Had I really lent her that much money? Was I being unreasonable? Maybe successful people were supposed to support their families. Maybe this was normal. When I tried to access my online banking one Tuesday morning in March, my password had been changed. Panic shot through me as I called the bank. "Ma'am, the authorized user on the account made the change yesterday," the customer service representative explained. "Authorized user?" "Yes, Sarah Miller. She's listed as having full access to the account." My blood ran cold. I had added Sarah to the account years ago when I was traveling for work, just in case of emergencies. I'd completely forgotten she still had access. That afternoon, I drove straight to Sarah's house, the beautiful 2-story colonial that she and Tom had bought just 6 months earlier. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the new BMW sitting next to Tom's truck. My stomach churned as I did the math in my head. Sarah answered the door in yoga pants and a designer athletic wear set, her hair perfectly styled despite claiming she'd been working out. "Jess, what a surprise! I was just about to text you." "Sarah, we need to talk about the money." Her expression shifted, becoming cold and defensive. "What about it?" "I've given you over $60,000 in the past year." $60,000, Sarah. That's my entire emergency fund." "Given? Jessica, you act like I stole it from you. You offered to help with my business ventures. You said you wanted to support my dreams." "I lent you $5,000 for one business opportunity. This has become—" I gestured around her perfectly decorated living room, taking in the new furniture, the expensive artwork, the designer everything. "This has become something completely different. You know what your problem is, Jessica? You're jealous. You're jealous that I have a beautiful home and a loving husband and a life outside of spreadsheets and tax forms." The accusation hit like a slap. "I'm not jealous, Sarah. I'm broke. I'm 32 years old and I have zero savings because every penny I've ever saved has gone to funding your lifestyle. That's not my fault. Maybe if you learned to live a little, make some investments, take some risks, you wouldn't be in this position." "Risks? You mean like the risk of trusting my sister with my life savings?" Sarah's face hardened completely. "I think you should leave. And, Jessica, maybe you should think about why everyone in this family thinks you have a problem with money. Maybe the issue isn't me." As I drove home that evening, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, I tried calling our parents. Surely they would see reason. Surely they would understand that $60,000 wasn't just helping out family. "Jessica, honey," Mom's voice was tired when she answered. "Sarah called and told us about your conversation. She's really hurt that you're keeping track of every penny like that." "Mom, she's taken $60,000 from me." "She's your sister, not a stranger. Family helps family. Your father and I are disappointed that you're making this about money instead of love." "But I need that money, Mom. What if something happens? What if I get sick or lose my job?" "Then we'll figure it out as a family." "But Jessica, this obsession with money isn't healthy. You're starting to sound paranoid." Paranoid. The word echoed in my head for weeks. Was I paranoid? Was I the problem? The breaking point came 6 months later in September. I was at my desk when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Miller, this is Dr. Patricia Chin from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. We need to discuss your recent biopsy results." The world tilted sideways. "Breast cancer. Stage 2, aggressive type. Treatment needed to start immediately." "The good news is it's very treatable," Dr. Chen explained during our follow-up appointment. "With chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, your 5-year survival rate is excellent. The challenge is that this particular treatment protocol is expensive, and insurance typically covers about 60%. I stared at the treatment estimate, $200,000. Even with insurance, I'd need $80,000 out of pocket, the exact amount I'd lent to Sarah over the past 2 years. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment staring at my bank statement. $847 in checking, $200 in savings. 2 years ago, I'd had enough money to handle this crisis. Now, I was facing a life-threatening illness with less than $2,000 to my name. I called Sarah first, my hands trembling as I dialed. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something serious. I was just diagnosed with breast cancer." There was a pause. "Oh no, Jess, that's terrible." "I need the money back, all of it. I need to start treatment immediately, and I need $80,000 that I don't have because—" "Whoa, hold on. You can't just demand money from me like that. I don't have $80,000 sitting around." "You have the house. You have the BMW. You have investments. Sarah, this is life or death." "Jessica, I understand you're scared, but you can't expect me to liquidate my entire life because you have a medical issue. There are payment plans, loans, charity programs. You'll figure it out." The line went dead. I called my parents next. Surely they would understand the gravity of the situation. "Dad, it's Jessica. I have cancer." "Jesus Christ, what kind?" "Breast cancer. I need surgery and chemo. It's going to cost $80,000 that I don't have because Sarah— Now hold on, Jessica. Don't you dare blame your sister for your medical bills. I'm not blaming her for the cancer, Dad. I'm saying she has my money that I need for treatment. That money was a gift to help your sister build a life. You can't just demand it back because you have problems. Problems? Dad, I have cancer. And we'll all support you emotionally, but financially, you're a grown woman. You need to figure this out yourself. For 3 days, no one in my family called to check on me. No one asked about my prognosis or treatment plan. When I tried calling, they either didn't answer or kept the conversations brief and cold. I was completely alone. By the 4th day, I had stopped eating. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by medical bills and insurance forms, staring at the wall. The woman in the mirror looked hollow, defeated. I had spent my entire adult life being the responsible one, the saver, the one who sacrificed so others could have their dreams. And when I needed them most, I was invisible. Maybe I deserved this, I thought. Maybe I had been selfish. Maybe I was the problem. That's when Marcus called. Marcus Thompson, my study partner from college, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Somehow, he'd heard through mutual friends. Jessica, I just heard about your diagnosis. How are you holding up? For the first time in days, someone was asking about me, not making demands or judgments. I started to give him the polite response, then broke down completely. I'm not okay, Marcus. I'm really not okay. Tell me what's happening. So I did. I told him everything. About Sarah, about the money, about my family's reaction. Marcus listened without interrupting, without judging, without telling me how I should feel. When I finished, there was a long silence. Jessica, Marcus said finally, you need to hear this. What your family did to you isn't normal. Taking someone's life savings and then abandoning them during a medical crisis isn't something that loving families do. But they keep telling me I'm being selfish. They're lying to you. They've been lying to you for years. Jessica, you've given your sister over $60,000 while living like a monk yourself. That's not selfish. That's financial abuse. Financial abuse. The words hit me like lightning. I need you to do something for me, Marcus continued. I need you to calculate exactly how much money you've given your family over the past 10 years. Every loan, every gift, every time you paid for dinner or vacations or emergencies. Write it all down. That night, I sat with a calculator and 10 years of bank statements. The number that stared back at me was staggering. $427,000. Over $400,000 I'd given to my family while denying myself basic comforts. For the first time since my diagnosis, I wasn't sad. I was furious. That number, $427,000, burned into my brain like a brand. $427,000. That was more than most people's houses. That was a retirement fund. That was security, stability, peace of mind. That was my entire adult life's work, handed over to people who couldn't even be bothered to call when I was diagnosed with cancer. Marcus came over the next morning with coffee and a legal pad. He found me still sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by bank statements and receipts, staring at that devastating total. Jesus, Jessica, 400,000? $427,312, I corrected, my voice eerily calm. To be exact. He sat down across from me, his expression shifting from shock to something I hadn't seen in years, righteous anger on my behalf. Do you understand what this is? He asked gently. This isn't family helping family. This is systematic financial exploitation. For the first time, someone was using words that matched what I'd been feeling but couldn't name. Exploitation, abuse, manipulation. I've been reading about this all night, Marcus continued, pulling out his phone. What your sister did has a name. It's called financial abuse, and it's more common than you think. The guilt trips, the gaslighting, the isolation from support systems, making you question your own reality. These are all classic tactics. I felt something crack open inside my chest, like ice breaking after a long winter. But they're my family. Family doesn't drain your life savings and abandon you when you're facing cancer, Jess. Family doesn't leave you with $800 and a terminal diagnosis while they're posting vacation photos on Instagram. He was right, and somewhere deep down, I'd always known it. But hearing someone else say it, someone who cared about me without wanting anything in return, gave me permission to feel what I'd been suppressing for years. I was angry. No, I was furious. "What do I do?" I whispered. "First, we save your life. Then, we get your money back." Marcus helped me set up a GoFundMe campaign that afternoon. I was reluctant at first. It felt like begging, like admitting failure, but Marcus had a different perspective. "You've been quietly helping people your whole life," he said as he typed up the campaign description. "You paid for your cousin's wedding, your uncle's car repairs, Sarah's entire lifestyle. You've been a one-woman charity for years. Now it's time to let people help you back." He was right about something else, too. Once I started telling the truth about my situation, really telling it, not the sanitized version I'd been giving everyone, people responded. My college friends, former co-workers, even neighbors I barely knew started donating. $5, $50, sometimes hundreds. But more than the money, it was the comments that healed something in me. "Jessica, I remember how you paid for everyone's drinks when we were broke in college. You deserve this support. You helped my family when my dad lost his job. Time to return the favor. Your family should be ashamed of themselves. You're not alone." Within 2 weeks, we'd raised $30,000. It wasn't enough for the full treatment, but it was enough to start chemotherapy. More importantly, it was proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't selfish, wasn't the problem. During my first chemo session, as I sat in that sterile oncology ward with an IV dripping poison into my veins, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let my family destroy me anymore. I was going to fight, not just the cancer, but the 20 years of conditioning that had made me believe I was worthless except as an ATM. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Kim, who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. Our first session was like excavating years of buried rage. "Tell me about your earliest memory of giving money to your family," she said. "I was 16. Sarah wanted this expensive dress for prom, but Mom and Dad said they couldn't afford it. I had been saving from my part-time job for a car, but I gave Sarah the money instead. I remember thinking it felt good to help, to be needed." "And how did that make you feel about yourself?" "Important, valuable. Like I had a purpose in the family." Dr. Kim nodded. "You learned very young that your worth was tied to your ability to provide financially. That's not love, Jessica. That's conditioning." Over the following weeks, as my hair fell out and my body fought the chemo, my mind cleared in ways I hadn't experienced in decades. I started seeing the patterns everywhere. How Sarah would always call when she needed money, never just to check in. How family gatherings always involved discussions of my job, my salary, my success, but never my happiness or health. How I'd been trained to equate love with financial sacrifice. Meanwhile, Marcus had been doing his own investigation into Sarah's finances. What he found made my blood boil. "She's not investing in business ventures, Jess. She's gambling, online poker, sports betting, casino trips to Vegas. That BMW you saw? She leased it 3 days after you transferred the last $20,000. He showed me screenshots he'd found on social media. Sarah at blackjack tables, bragging about hot streaks and lucky nights. My life savings had been feeding an addiction, not building dreams. But the most damning evidence came from Tom, Sarah's husband, who reached out to me directly after seeing my GoFundMe. "Jessica, I had no idea how much money Sarah was taking from you," he said when we met at a coffee shop near the hospital. "She told me her parents were helping us with the house, that she had inheritance money. I'm filing for divorce. She's been lying to everyone." Tom handed me a folder of financial records. "I want you to have these. Bank statements showing where the money went, credit card bills, loan applications where she listed your savings as her assets. I hope it helps." Armed with documentation, testimonies, and a rage that burned hotter than chemotherapy, I made the call I should have made years earlier. I hired a lawyer. Attorney Jennifer Walsh specialized in financial elder abuse and family exploitation cases. When I walked into her office, bald from chemo but stronger than I'd been in years, she looked at my evidence and whistled low. "This is one of the most clear-cut cases of financial abuse I've seen. We can absolutely recover damages, but Jessica, you need to understand something. When we file this lawsuit, your family is going to come at you with everything they've got. Are you ready for that war?" I thought about the 20 years of guilt trips, manipulation, and emotional terrorism. I thought about sitting alone in that hospital room after my diagnosis, abandoned by the people I'd sacrificed everything for. "I've been fighting their war my whole life," I told her. "Now it's time to fight my own." We filed the lawsuit on a Tuesday morning in December. By Tuesday afternoon, my phone was exploding with calls from family members I hadn't heard from in years. First was my mother, her voice shrill with panic. "Jessica, how could you do this to your sister? She's already going through a divorce." "Mom, she stole over $400,000 from me while I was battling cancer." "It wasn't stealing. It was family helping family. You're going to destroy this family." "No, Mom, she already did that." Then came the aunts, uncles, cousins, all suddenly concerned about family unity and working things out privately. Where had they been when I was sitting alone in chemotherapy? Where was their concern when I was facing financial ruin because of a cancer diagnosis? But the call that broke my heart came from my father. "Jessica, you're killing your mother with this stress. She can't eat, can't sleep. Is this really what you want? To tear apart everything we've built as a family?" "Dad, what family? When I had cancer, none of you called. When I needed help, you all disappeared. Sarah took my life savings and you defended her. What family am I destroying exactly? We're not perfect, but we're blood. That has to count for something." "It should count for something," I agreed. "It should count for not stealing from me. It should count for not abandoning me when I was dying." But apparently, it doesn't. The smear campaign started immediately. Sarah created a family group chat that I wasn't included in, spreading lies about my money obsession and vindictive personality. Extended family members who barely knew me were suddenly posting on Facebook about forgiveness and the importance of family loyalty. But something had changed in me. The woman who would have crumbled under this pressure, who would have apologized and backed down just to keep the peace, was gone. Cancer had burned away my need for their approval, and therapy had shown me what healthy relationships actually looked like. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the threat of criminal charges for financial fraud, Sarah agreed to settle. She couldn't pay back the full amount immediately, but she agreed to sell the house and liquidate her assets. The day the settlement check arrived, $240,000, not everything but enough to secure my future. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted, empty, like I'd been carrying a massive weight for so long that I didn't know how to stand up straight without it. Marcus found me crying in my apartment that evening, holding the check. "I thought I'd feel better," I admitted. "I thought getting the money back would fix everything." "The money was never really the point, was it?" he said gently. He was right. The money was just paper. What I'd really lost, what I'd really been fighting for, was something much more fundamental: my sense of self-worth, my right to boundaries, my understanding of what love actually meant. But as the weeks passed and my final chemo treatments ended, I started to feel something I hadn't experienced in decades. Peace. My hair was growing back, fine and soft like a baby's. My strength was returning. And for the first time in my adult life, my bank account balance didn't cause me anxiety. More importantly, I was learning what real relationships looked like. Marcus had stood by me through everything, never asking for anything in return. Dr. Kim continued working with me to rebuild my sense of self. The community that had supported my GoFundMe stayed in touch, creating genuine friendships based on mutual care rather than financial transaction. One day in February, as I was leaving Dr. Kim's office, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in months: my mother. She looked older, tired, like she'd aged years in the past few months. "Jessica," she said, her voice small. "How are you feeling?" "I'm doing well, Mom. The cancer is in remission." That's wonderful, honey." She fidgeted with her purse. Your father and we've been thinking maybe we could talk, maybe work things out. I looked at this woman who had raised me, who had taught me to tie my shoes and helped with homework, who had also systematically conditioned me to believe my worth was measured in dollar signs. Mom, I'm open to talking, but it would have to be real talking about what happened, about why it happened, about how we make sure it never happens again. She looked confused, like she'd expected me to immediately forgive and forget, to slip back into the old patterns. I don't understand what you mean. I mean therapy, Mom. Family therapy, with Dr. Kim. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be a healthy one. She stood there for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the idea that reconciliation might require actual work, actual change, actual accountability. I'll think about it, she said finally. Take your time, I told her. I'm not going anywhere. As I watched her walk away, I realized something profound had shifted. I was no longer desperate for their love, no longer willing to pay any price for their approval. If they wanted me in their lives, they'd have to accept the new me, the me with boundaries, with self-respect, with the understanding that love shouldn't cost everything you have. That night, Marcus and I went out for dinner to celebrate my remission. As we sat in a restaurant I actually liked instead of the cheapest option I could find, I looked around at my new life. I had a beautiful apartment that I'd furnished with my settlement money. I had genuine friendships. I had a therapist who helped me navigate the world with clarity and strength. I had a future that belonged to me, not to other people's dreams and addictions and manipulations. You know what's funny? I told Marcus as we looked over the dessert menu without calculating the cost. I thought losing my family would feel like death, but it actually feels like being born. He smiled. That's because you didn't lose your family, Jess. You lost the people who were pretending to be your family while they drained your life away. Your real family is still being built. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Coffee tomorrow? I want to hear how you're doing and talk about this financial abuse support group I'm starting. Another message from Dr. Kim. Proud of your progress. See you Wednesday. A third from a woman named Lisa who'd reached out after seeing my story online. Going through something similar with my brother. Would love to talk if you have time. This was my chosen family. People who cared about my well-being without a price tag attached. People who celebrated my victories and supported me through struggles without keeping score. I looked at Marcus, this friend who had saved my life simply by telling me the truth when everyone else was lying to me. Thank you, I said, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. That's what real family does, he replied.